Resistance is a tricky thing, especially in a galaxy far, far away. How do the Jedi fight for what's right without becoming what they're fighting against? How does anyone resist evil without becoming another kind of evil? This is one of the main questions at the heart of Star Wars ever since George Lucas put the ideas forward in A New Hope in 1976. And it's a question we're still grappling with. How do you resist the Empire without giving in to the dark side? Let's talk about that as we walk together down CreationSpirituality. Hello, everyone. My name is Charlie. I am a Christopagan Druid and Priest of Bridget.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian. I'm a Christopagan Druid and sous chef to the Dog.
Today, we're talking about how you resist evil, how you resist the Empire without giving into the dark side. I'll tell you right now, this is why most revolutions fail. This is why most diets fail. This is why most life changes fail, is we give into the dark side and then become our own resistance against our resistance and go back to what we were doing before. But before we get into all that, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, whatever the terminology happens to be on whatever app you're listening to us on. We do 5 original Christopagan and Druid episodes Monday through Friday, and you don't want to miss a thing, especially as we're doing our Jedi and Druidry series right now. And we're launching our Living the Dream of the Oak Church series. And you don't want to miss anything. We got a lot of really cool stuff happening. All right, let's just get into it, shall we? This is a real hard question that a Rag and Bone Man song starting going through my head, because we're only human after all. There is always a desire for control, for revenge, for an end to chaos, and an institution of order. Those are actually the core instincts that lead someone directly to the dark side, because a desire for order is generally rooted in a fear of chaos.
Yeah, it really is born out of this. It starts with this desire for peace, for tranquility, but it becomes a drive for order where everything is subservient to order and must, therefore, anything against order, any bit of what is presumed chaos becomes the enemy and gets attacked. The thing is, life is chaotic by its very nature. It's something we see, especially as Druids, when we look out in nature and learn from it. In the Northern Hemisphere, we're seeing this transition time, the spring and summertime, when we're watching just the chaos of life happen around us. Plants are growing in places that we never wanted them to grow in. We never tried to plant them in, yet they still are growing there. Insects, bugs, spiders, things are trying to creep and crawl into places that we never wanted them to.
What was it you were telling me yesterday? It looked like it was snowing outside.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, there was a moment when there was a hatch open while someone was doing maintenance on the roof. I looked up into the stream of light because I saw movement, and it looked like it was snowy inside. And it was actually little spider webs of the spiders that make webs to catch the wind, and they glide on it. And there was so many of them, it looked like it was literally snowing over the building in the parking lot. Talk about chaos. Part of the problem is with that kind of chaos is recognizing that there is still an order to things. The things will grow in spring, which can be very chaotic seeming to us, but actually isn't. And in the fall, winter, things fruit, harvest, seed, and then die off. In a way, it's very orderly, but it's not orderly for us, because by then we're used to our plants and we don't want the plants to go away. That's something they're going through in the Southern Hemisphere right now, where plants are browning, leaves are falling off of trees.
Star Wars simplifies morality down to 2 competing forces. And those are often simplified as the light side and the dark side. But if you actually pay attention, it's the difference between selflessness and selfishness. These are the 2 forces that are at war in a galaxy far, far away. It's important to note here that simple morality is not always simplistic morality. We confuse simple and simplistic because we want things to be complex and complicated, because the more complex the thing is, the easier it is for us to justify not achieving a goal. The more difficult something looks, the more easy it is to excuse failure. And also, when it comes to Star Wars, people often talk about how simplistic it is. It's a children's show for the most part. With the exception of Andor, it's a kid's show. So the morality lessons have to be simple enough that a child can understand them. I think we as adults who grew up with Star Wars is just barely a couple months older than me. So I never lived in a world without Star Wars. It's hard to remember that these stories in these worlds that I grew up with are actually meant for people much, much younger than me. Again, with the exception of Andor, which is their first adult series. And I feel like that's important to say. Outside of the books, Andor is the first adult series that they have done. And oh, it shows. And I feel like next year, which will give people enough time to have watched it and we can lift the moratorium on spoilers, our Star Wars series next year, like really dig into the themes and stuff there. This basic dividing line between selflessness and selfishness is a really good way to understand whether you are doing the right thing or not. Revenge is always selfish, no matter what we want to say, no matter how altruistic we think revenge is. Revenge is always a selfish act. Controlling, dominating others is always a selfish act, regardless of how selfless we want to make it sound. When we actually listen to the Imperial talk, they're not trying to control the galaxy. They're trying to bring order, to bring peace. And I actually believe Palpatine when he says that. And now there will be peace. Because if everything is under one rule from one person with one set of guidelines that everyone has to follow, and everyone does follow it, that would be a certain kind of order. That would be a certain kind of peace. But, and this is where the lie creeps in, it's a selfish order. It's his order. It's his order that doesn't care what happens to the people underneath. It's his order that turns a blind eye to the corruption and the harm that's being done, because the harm can be hand waved away because it's for the greater good. I really think we have to realize almost any time we hear the statement for the greater good, alarm bells have to go off, because I can, off the top of my head, never think of a time that has been used honestly. And by honestly, I mean something actually serving the greater good. Usually it's a justification for an atrocity, for harm, for some kind of violence. And it's either a proactive or retroactive justification of it. When we act selflessly, this is not all about self-sacrifice. This isn't learning to burn your candle at both ends so that everyone is okay except for you. That's selfish as well, because I am so important to the story. I have to do everything. And so I am going to burn myself out so that everyone else can be okay. But see, that's not actually a selfless act. That's still a self act. Anytime an individual, person, ethnicity, nation, religion, spirituality, and this is where I'm going to get some flack from those who haven't completely gone over to the Christopagan side, God is going to be problematic. The God of the scriptures, and I'm being very specific here, I'm not talking about the God of the Jews or the God of the Christians or anyone else who bases their religion off of the book. I'm saying the God of the book is one God amongst many. It is a God who received his inheritance from the high God, from El Elyon. It is a God who exists in concert with others, often within a divine council. Even in the book, it's a God amongst gods who starts trying to say, no, I'm the only one. Because the people wanted to say, no, we're the only one. Because remember, your theology is more a reflection of who you are, not who God is. All gods are made in the image, and so the people who
living in right relationship becomes such a wonderful measuring tool to see how things are doing. Because if your Palpatine or empire, or if your government or ruling body sits back and goes, I want or need this resource, and that justifies whatever means are used, when you look at it through the lens of, is that living in right relationship? The answer is probably not. Most of the time not, because usually the means used don't actually justify the real ends. Because when one is being solipsistic, when one is only seeing things from that selfish lens, they are not considering other repercussions other than, I want this thing, I now have this thing. That's the end of it. There's no further looking into. When you're looking at right relationship, you're looking into the other repercussions. If I'm taking this resource, am I putting an entire planet? Let's look at Jedi, for instance, in the Star Wars setting, because Rogue One's been out for a while. They wanted those kyber crystals from Jeddah. They put an entire planet into a state of war, taking those kyber crystals that they wanted, to the point where they eventually destroy large swaths of the planet, just wreaking ecological havoc and slaughter. But that was before it was left with decades of war, trying to take the thing that they want. And if they had looked at it in terms of right relationship, there were other ways they could have gotten those kyber crystals that they needed that could have been in a better relationship.
See, this is why I firmly believe that every faith on earth, every philosophy on earth, every person on earth needs to be exposed to and probably accept the 3 Dharma Seals. It's why it became core to our spirituality and our practice. And you can see them echoed within some of the Jedi. And it's where the Jedi themselves go wrong, is they forget these 3 things as well. If you're not familiar with them, we did an entire episode on them earlier. You can go in and go back and see our deep dive into I think we call them the 3 keys of liberation, I believe is the name of that episode. But the first is impermanence, that nothing is constant. Everything is changing. There is nothing permanent or fixed. Accepting just this first Dharma Seal. Remember, these are the 3 seals of truth. That's what a Dharma Seal means. These are the 3 things something probably has truth in it. And we start with nothing is permanent. Everything is changing all the time. Well, this digs at the heart of the empire, right? They want a permanent, lasting, forever peace. They want a permanent, lasting, forever order. This is where the rebels went wrong. They also wanted the exact same thing. This is why the First Order came about, as a response to their inability to achieve the order that they were trying to bring about. We see this cycle continuing over and over and over again because they're not accepting this first seal of truth, this first sign that truth is fully here. Everything is impermanent. Everything is always changing. When you accept that, and that becomes your starting point, then you understand, yes, I'm going to feel good today. I'm not going to feel good tomorrow. Yes, there will be happiness today, but there will be sorrow. Yes, there will be sorrow today, but there will be happiness tomorrow. You understand none of these states are permanent. Everything is always in a state of flux and in a state of change. The second Dharma Seal is the idea of no self, non-self, that because nothing is permanent, there is no independent or separate self. You are who you are because of the intricate web of relationships that you are in. This is not saying that you do not exist. I think a lot of people get this wrong in thinking that it means that no one exists. No, you exist. This is a very fancy way of saying no one is an island. You are who and what you are because of your genetics, because of your childhood, because of the relationships that you have had and are currently having. You feel the way that you do because of what you have eaten, what you have done, how good exercise it has been, how good your health has been. You are the way that you are because of the injuries you have had and the various causes of them. You are the cause of an infinite number of effects, and an infinite number of causes created you. And to remember that you are just a link in this chain, that you're not separate. There is no separate you. This keeps you from elevating yourself up like an Emperor Palpatine. No, I am the chosen one. I am the one who saw the way. Everyone must obey me. Or a Count Dooku, or a Darth Vader, who foresaw himself murdering his own wife and tried so hard to stop it that he did it exactly the way he saw it happening. Learning to see yourself in this infinite web where there is no separate you. You exist in this complex and complicated web. How clean the water is, how clean the air is, all of the people that contribute to the cleanliness of the water and the air, all the people that make the food that you eat, from growing it to picking it to shipping it to preparing it to putting it in front of you. The clothes that you wear, the same processes go into it. We are all infinitely interconnected. And even if you're like, well, I'm going to go off into the woods and I'm going to live by myself. Okay, but You cannot digest food without this glorious set of relationships with this microbiome of flora and fauna living in your gut. You are healthy because of this vast, interconnected, and interdependent web of flora and fauna living on your skin, helping to fight off all of the bad things that want to infect you. There is no way to escape this infinite web of who we are. And so the impulse comes in to control it. The third one is that simply that enlightenment exists, that there is a state of liberation from suffering, that we can find peace, that we can find quiet, that we can find calm, that we can find joy. Yes, that does exist. That is there too. Those are the three Dharma keys. When we look at the way the empire exists, you can see how they're struggling against it. And you can see how these three keys help us understand how to fight against it. It's trying to say, no, the great ones will save us. We just have to obey orders. No one is infinitely wise, so no one can see the full complex web that's making everything happen. Consensus is what we need. We need to have a broader sense of who and what and how we are. We see this in so many of the stories. We're going to talk more later about Finn McCool, but this is the man who literally ate from the salmon of wisdom, and gained the knowledge of the universe only to become the villain in his own story. Because once he believed he knew all, he believed he knew better. And those are two different things. So how do we fight against evil? How do we fight? How do we resist without becoming the dark side? This is where the three seals come in. This is where those three truths come in.
And then when you couple that with the fact that we war against the systems, principalities and powers, not the individuals. So when they were resisting the empire, if they had looked at the systems rather than worrying about the tools, but the systems behind it, they would have understood better. They would have been wiser about that. If you're being selfish instead of selfless, you're heading into trouble. If you're not keeping in mind that life is change, that all life is impermanent, it would have helped them out. Instead of being so fixated on Palpatine, if they had looked at it was this need, this craving, this system, this craving for order, this ever hungry and never satisfied beast that grabbed a hold of Palpatine and drove Palpatine. And then when Palpatine was overthrown, it grabbed the Rebel Alliance and drove them. And then it grabbed and infected the First Order and drove the First Order. It was the thing that kept creeping back up.
That is the cycle of suffering. But we can see the actual way to fight this in something like Star Wars Rebel, where we see they're remembering this interconnectedness. It's always about family. It's always about connecting people in. They free Lothal because, I'll say this again, because they awaken Ryder to the needs of his people, and the people to their desire for freedom, for their desire to grow together and support each other. We see at the very beginning of this series, the people of Lothal are very locked in their own business. They're not paying attention to each other. They're all distracted in their own affairs. And through course of the series, they learn that only through this mutual dependency, through this mutual aid, this mutual support, can they actually rise up and fight off the Empire. You see, we focus, because it's storytelling, on the heroes, on the Kanan Jarrus and the Ezra Bridgers and the Harrison Doulas and the Sabine Wrens, right? We focus on these characters because they're the heroes. They're the individuals it's easy to tell the story about. But throughout the course of the series, we see how they help writers to go and build a network and start organizing the people. We see the people rising up. Lothal would not have been free just because Ezra Bridger defeated Thrawn. The Ezra Bridger defeating Thrawn did not save Lothal. The people rising up and taking their planet back for their own mutual support and betterment defeated the Empire. And each person played their part. Ezra took on Thrawn. All of the other characters had their own specific targets and objectives. Everyone played their part. And that's how you actually defeat things, defeat evil in this systemic way. You literally have to build a new system that pushes the old one out. And we see this. They didn't defeat the Empire because Vader threw the Emperor down a shaft in the second Death Star. That's not what defeated the Empire. It's that when word of this happened, uprisings broke out throughout the galaxy. And that's what you actually see at the end of Return of the Jedi. These uprisings rising up. All the seeds had been there. All of the networks had been planted. All of the people doing their part were there. And now they were emboldened and they took action together. That's what you're seeing at the end of Return of the Jedi. And also brilliantly through the Aftermath books that take us from that battle at Endor all the way through to the battle, well, the last battle with the Empire, and all the things that happened in between. The people reconnecting, the people rising up, remembering our interconnection, staying in this selfless place. None of us think that we are so important that the movement will not survive without us.
This really is the climactic lesson that we learn, even in the first movie, the episode 4, A New Hope. A lot of that struggle is actually pinned around Han and Han's struggle with selfishness and recognizing that interconnectedness and stepping up, even at his own risk of having a huge bounty put on his head because he had the money to go pay Jabba. All he had to do is go for the deadline.
And he saves Luke.
But I think he turns around. He saves Luke. He helps Luke so that Luke can destroy the Death Star and save all the rebels on Yavin 4.
Links in a chain. Links in a chain. Even Yoda had to explain this to Obi-Wan in Empire Strikes Back as Luke is flying away to go do a foolish thing. He's our only hope. That gets repeated by Obi-Wan. And Yoda just says, no, there is another. And see, everybody thinks that's Leia. And I think that, yes, it's Leia, it's Ezra, we could go down the list of all of the other people that could have achieved what needed to be done. It's not about just the one person. It's about this web, this community that grows up. And you see how it spreads. Lando's all about himself when we meet him, but he gets woven in and actually leads the forces against the second Death Star. You're watching people get knitted back into the chain and understand their place in the great web of existence. And that's how you rise up. That's how you push back. And that's how you don't give in to the dark side. The dark side is always selfish. It says, no, you have to listen to me. No, you have to do what I say. No, we don't. And that's what makes it so hard, is it's so simple and so hard at the same time. It's difficult sometimes to say no. And sometimes it's just as hard to say yes. There are very few binary choices in life, but do you resist evil is a binary choice. There is no maybe a little bit. You're either in or you're out of the fight. You learn how to play your role. You learn where you fit in to the grand scheme of things, and you do what needs to be done. I hope this has helped you out. I hope that you found something interesting in this discussion. I would love to know your thoughts. You can let us know in the comments if you're listening to us on YouTube or Spotify or CreationsPaths.com. You can leave a comment right there. If you're listening to us anywhere else, even if they say you can leave a comment, they don't let us know. You can leave a comment there anyway because the engagement is magic. And then head over to CreationsPaths.com, click on chat, and you can leave a comment there, and we will see it, and we'll be able to get back to you. While you're there, if you happen to have a few dollars you can pass our way, we offer monthly and annual memberships. You can also support us on Patreon and Ko-fi. I see you listen on both. And you can also support us using the Cash App, #CreationsPaths. Thank you to everybody who does that. It helps us keep lights on, keep a roof over our head, and food on our table. If we've ever said anything that's helped you out, please share it with others. That helps us out more than you know. As we're heading out today, we need to say a prayer to the Ildanach, to Lu. O Lu, master of all skills, who knew that he needed to fulfill his role in whatever was needed at the time that he was called upon. Help us to learn all of the skills that we have, all the talents that are within us, and to master them all so that we may rise to the task whenever and however we are needed, so that we may do the work of building the community and keeping it strong. Amen.
Amen.